Hi, my name is Jared, and this is Horror Obsession.
Come on, you. Oh, come on, Dad. Jesus. Come on.
Well, why for Shelley?
Shut him. Die. Ex-murder kill.
Right, you just say turn over when you're ready, Sammy.
In my last video, I talked extensively about what details and choices Kubrick made to scare the audience. Moving objects in frame, the use of title cards to create a sense of momentous dread, hurtling towards a grotesque foregone conclusion, the acting of Nicholson, and the visual suggestions of violence are all contributing factors to why this is one of the best horror movies ever. But now it's time to tackle the impossible task. What are the themes of this movie? Like I mentioned, The Shining is one of the most analyzed movies of all time, and almost definitely the most analyzed horror movie of all time. There is hardly anything I could say that hasn't been said by someone else about this movie, but I have read and watched a lot about this movie, so I'm gonna give my opinion on what this movie is about. If you have a different opinion, that's great. That is what watching and enjoying movies is all about, so just don't be a jerk about it. Alright, with that out of the way, I first wanted to address some of the popular theories about The Shining. For example, in the documentary Room 237, one of the theorists believes the moon landing footage was faked and that Kubrick is confessing to his faking the footage in this movie. It sounds outlandish at first, but honestly, the more you think about it, the dumber it gets. Without getting into whether the moon landing footage was faked, hint, it was not, the man gets absolutely giddy when Danny is wearing an Apollo sweater. He also says Kubrick changed the room number from the book to 237 because that is the distance from the Earth to the moon, and I must say,
we got him! We got him!
oh, actually, there is one thing. The distance from the Earth to the Moon is actually not 237,000 miles, it is 238,900, which doesn't even round to 237,000. His final piece of evidence is that the carpet looks like the Apollo launching pad, which, okay, it kind of does, but that is the definition of confirmation bias. Which leaves us basically just the sweater. I am positive Kubrick had something in mind when Wardrobe chose the sweater for Danny, and I am equally positive that was not a confession to faking the moon landing. At the end of the documentary, they try to lend credence to their crackpot theories by saying what I said last episode. Whether or not it was the artist's intention doesn't mean it can't be part of artistic analysis. I do agree with this, but when your theory is Kubrick is confessing to faking the moon landing, your theory clearly requires that to have been Kubrick's intent.
I became interested in seeing if Kubrick left any clues in the rest of his career to his possible involvement in faking the Apollo moon footage.
There is no theory without that, which is another way of saying there is no theory. Don't try to make sense of the theory. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no theory. Another one of the theorists believes the Hedge maze is a labyrinth in reference to the mythic story of the Minotaur, which is basically supported by three pieces of information. The first is that the ski poster vaguely resembles a Minotaur, which honestly has me questioning the sanity of the producers of Room 237 for putting this lady on screen. Her second piece of evidence is the inclusion of the Hedge maze at all, which was not in the book, but is a clear plot point and lends itself to awesome visuals, and I will get to what the purpose is later, so hang on for that. Finally, Kubrick's 1955 film Killer's Kiss was made by Minotaur Productions.
We got him! We got him!
Which is possibly the most asinine and worthless connection in a film chock full of asinine and worthless connections. The final Room 237 theory I want to talk about is the connection with the movie to Genocide. I do feel there is some merit to this theory, especially as it relates to Native American genocide. There is Native American imagery all over this movie, from the cans of food to the paintings on the walls. Mr. Ullman even mentions the hotel was built on an Indian burial ground.
The site is supposed to be located on an Indian burial ground, and I believe they actually had to repel a few Indian attacks as they were building it.
An often copied, kind of childish and stupid way of justifying a place being haunted. The elevator of blood seems to be symbolizing the river of blood from Western expansion, and the elevators themselves were specifically chosen to resemble a screaming human face.
White man's burden, Lloyd, my man. White man's burden.
How do the characters play into this? I am sure you have heard the old refrain, those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. Kubrick is asking the audience to look to their past, lest they repeat the atrocities found there. Grady murdered his family, and Jack tries to do the same after being influenced by the hotel, which symbolizes a savage and violent past. There is even more evidence for this, including Danny defeating Jack by retracing his steps in the snow, which is both an old trick natives used to use to confuse trackers, and also a visual metaphor for looking to your past for salvation. The end shot of the film is Jack trapped in the photo from the past, forever entombed in the history of the hotel. To get back to the documentary, some of their justifying of this theory is getting into South Park territory, especially when this guy tries to connect the room number to 42, the year Hitler ordered his final solution.
There's a dissolve which fades from a wide shot of the final black and white photo to a close-up of Jack's face, and just for a second there, his hairline fades in to form a Hitler mustache.
If you multiply the numbers 2, 3, and 7, you get 42. It is consistent with a pattern of reference.
Wait a minute. Butt sex.
Butt sex?
Butt sex requires a lot of lubrication, right? Lubrication. Chupacabras, the goat killer of Mexican folklore. Folklore is stories from the past that are often fictionalized. Fictionalized to heighten drama. Drama student. Students at colleges usually have bicycles. Binary. It's binary code.
Later, he goes on to talk about how people are watching him, which I think the film producers included because it creates a sense of dread and they felt it added credence to the story. But honestly, it comes off as kind of paranoid and psychotic.
As far as what the government has done, I fully expect my taxes to be audited next year, to be honest with you. And I've had visitations, and they're definitely watching me for sure. And they're not too happy with what's going on here.
There are a couple more themes of this movie hidden in plain sight, and the main one I wanted to talk about is the theme of child molestation. There is definitely a lot of evidence that Jack has been molesting Danny. I mean, just watch this scene and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Having a good time?
Yes, Dad.
Good. I want you to have a good time.
I am, Dad.
Kubrick holds the camera in a medium 2 shot for a very, very, very uncomfortably long time, matching Danny's extreme discomfort at being with his dad. Is this evidence of child molestation? Not in and of itself, but there's a lot more. Jack is reading a Playgirl magazine, not a Playboy, a Playgirl, when Mr. Ullman comes to get him from the lobby. The cover of that magazine has a story titled Incest: Why Parents Sleep with Their Children, and it is hard to imagine Kubrick accidentally chose this. Furthermore, Danny is shown in frame with his bear pillow at the start of the film, and is attached to bear imagery consistently throughout the film. In the famous scene at the end of the movie, where Wendy sees the furry in a bear costume giving head to the formal party guy, this is a similar scene to the book, but changed from a dog costume to a bear. The image is very unsettling in and of itself, but this scene is showing the molestation Danny had to endure as he represents the bear. Wendy is finally realizing the extent of the abuse her son suffered, and I could go through even more evidence, but just talking about this theory kind of makes me sick. The last theory I want to put forward is that Danny intentionally kills his father and sets up the entire situation. I mentioned in the previous video that the hotel is trying to get the family to kill each other, and said it specifically this way because the Overlook is definitely trying to get Jack to kill his family, but also trying to get Danny to kill Jack. When Danny is hiding in the cupboard, Jack approaches, and Danny comes running out of an excellent hiding place that Jack was unlikely to ever find Danny in. He does this so that Jack will chase him outside, which is pretty clear when you look at how Danny is waiting outside by the car for him. Once Jack is in sight of the maze entrance, Danny runs out from behind the vehicle to lure Jack into the maze. Once he is sufficiently into the maze, Danny retraces his steps, which functions as a fun, creative means of escape for Danny in the plot in a literal sense, but also functions as a metaphor for looking to your past for salvation, like we discussed earlier. Danny then retraces the steps back out of the maze, and his dad is trapped and can no longer abuse him. I have heard people say that showing Danny with his mom in the maze earlier sets this up because Danny has the maze memorized, which I always thought was a pretty weak theory, since memorizing what the maze looks like in the dark would be nearly impossible, but Danny didn't have to memorize the maze. He can retrace the footsteps he and Jack took in, and Jack can't do this because he will have gone down multiple additional pathways trying to find Danny and is no longer able to use his past for salvation. Honestly, I could talk about The Shining for hours. For some of you watching these videos, it might feel like I already have, but rest assured I am always capable of more prattling. The Shining is a brilliant piece of cinema and a deeply complex supernatural horror with mature, disturbing themes. The mise-en-scene is masterfully constructed to subliminally disorient the audience, and the performances are astonishingly good. Everything about The Shining is incredible, and the almost 3-hour runtime goes by faster than most hour-and-a-half movies. One of the best signs a movie is excellent. There will never be another director quite like Kubrick. I mean, the man has people saying his film is about Minotaurs and faking the moon landing based on the damn poster in the background of one shot and a sweater a character wears. As much as I love Fincher and Tarantino and Denis, no one is going through their movies frame by frame looking for clues to some wild conspiracy theory, which is probably a good thing. The first YouTuber to come out with a video on how the Wachowskis faked 9/11 will probably get cut off before they even finish.